Hey everyone, happy Friday. I have your update for the week, and although I don't have a lot of material this week, we do have a few important things to focus on. So I'm gonna work my way up. The first thing that we got is we got these little awesome window clings. It's like a sticker that's easy to move around to cling to glass, and they say, "Firefighter, please save our pets." And the pet owner can list how many or maybe even the breeds of pets that they have, and they can put their contact information, and then it says, "If I can't be reached, please bring my pet to Lafayette Veterinary Care Center." So we have these available at our front desk, and then we're also going to be adding them to our puppy and kitten packs that we welcome new pets with. So I just thought those were a little something extra and special that we can put out there, and if each of you need one for your home, feel free to take them. Another cool thing that we got was following our last CE meeting about 3 weeks ago, where we really went through how we can do better with euthanasias. One thing that we really spent a lot of focus and consideration on was preparing pet owners for the process and what to expect. And so we found these really awesome brochures. It's Understanding Companion Animal Euthanasia, and inside it goes through the majority of the details that go around many questions that owners would have, from how to make the decision to how to prepare to memorialize their pet, planning like who to include and what to expect afterwards, grief support, and so on. It even goes over considerations if you have other children and pets in the household. So it's a really thorough, nice piece of literature that we could reference, and I would like to make sure that we take the time very soon to include a lot of these things on our website too. So these are going to live in the pharmacy area with the other brochures for now, but I would recommend that you each grab one and look over it. Don't waste them, please, because we paid for them, but you can look over it and just kind of brush yourself up to make sure that what you refer to is in here, okay? So those are two new things that we have that are out and about. The next thing that I wanted to go through was about our schedule. Since we've now started having doctors here at 7 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. So again, just to kind of give you that point of reference, we have a doctor here from 11 p.m. until 8 a.m. and then the next doctor comes in from 7 to 4 on both Saturday and Sunday. So on those particular shifts, because that doctor is going to be taking over many hospitalized cases, we're going to have a transfer point at 7 a.m. So that 7 to 4 doctor will have the first 30 minutes of their day until 7:30, where they will receive transferred cases back, and they'll settle those hospitalized cases, make any phone calls that they need, and then they would go to seeing appointments. So we've added a block off to the beginning of those days. It's much like what we do from 8 to 8:30 on weekdays. So again, I just wanted to let you know that that's there, and for those team members who come in to support the doctors, be aware that that's what the beginning of your day looks like. And we're going to start that immediately. The next thing that I wanted to go through, also in reference to our schedule, you should be aware that procedure doctors are here from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. When they have an assigned procedure day. And on those particular days, if we open up the doctor in the afternoon for appointments because they finished their procedures early, we want to make sure that the lead nurse of that team adds a block off from 5 to 6, because we still need to be available to do the discharges, but usually in the afternoon hours leading up till 5 o'clock, they're available for appointments. So we just need to put that block off in to communicate with the team if that time is needed for discharges, and I know that the team pairs down at that time too. So we'll just be aware that that block off should be respected for those things. So that's it really in the way of announcements today. Told you it was short, but I do have one extra special situation that I wanted to dive into. We talked about it in a couple different circles, but I wanted to bring it together here in our update, and that's about bandage care. So we had an interesting situation this week that worked out okay, but it could have been a huge blunder that I'd like to make sure that we stay sharp and committed as a team to prevent it from happening. So we had a pet who had a splinted bandage and went to the resort after leaving the hospital. And then the pet stayed at the resort for a few days. On the last day that it was going to be staying, was supposed to be brought back to the hospital for that first bandage recheck. And at the point that the nurse got involved to bring the pet over, it was found that the bandage was saturated in urine. So this is what it looked like. See all this yellow, brown smell-o-vision? The smell is horrific. And it's inside a plastic bag. It's really, really gross. But if you look in here, this would be the toe part where it would hit the ground on the pet's foot. And then up here would be the top. So the top where the bandage, this part, the tape would have been white. You can see is all yellow. And of course the inside, all this padding just absolutely soaked up the urine. I can't even hold it. It smells so bad. So we have to just be aware that that can happen really quickly. Let me be very, very clear. No one is to blame for this. It just happens sometimes. However, like anything that happens, how we respond to what happens and what we do in the future to learn from it and to work to prevent it is really where the magic is. And our team is so dedicated and so diligent about everything that we do. I really feel like if we all get on the same page right now, we can make it all the better. So as far as bandages, I know it's a consistent effort that we can do better and we should do better. So here's how I want to organize this. First, I want to educate everybody. And nurses, this will especially be for you to hear. Nothing happens at the resort that isn't on a list. It just doesn't. And it's just part of their process, and it's what enables them to care for 150, 160 pets at a time like they are, especially during the summertime. Everything has a list. Everything is checked off and initialed off, every single pet, everything that they get. So it's not to say that there's no common sense applied at the resort. Trust me, there's plenty. But with that many pets, it's so easy for things to be overlooked that they're very list oriented on how things happen. So nurses, if you are sending a pet to the resort, doctors too, if you expect anything out of the ordinary for that pet, it needs to go on a list. So for example, check and make sure the pet has an e-collar. Check bandage, check sutures, monitor while feeding. Anything extra that wouldn't regularly happen for a pet, like feeding, watering, letting out normally, those are all things that are automatic. Everything else goes on a list. So if you want a bandage to be checked, that needs to go on a list. And nurses, this is why we constantly are harping. When you go to the resort, you have to discharge that pet as if you were sending it home for the owner. So if you would stop and tell an owner to make sure that a bandage doesn't get wet, or if it gets urinated on, that's important, that urine would then be sitting on the skin, you have to tell the resort that as well. And you have to tell them, this pet's coming in with a bandage and I want the bandage checked twice a day. That would be my recommendation, would be a twice a day bandage check. So you have to stop at the resort front desk and you have to tell them, and then resort front desk will be counting on you to then take that information and actually put whatever that pet needs on a schedule on a list. So for the pet who came over with the bandage, the nurse should stop at the front desk and point out that the pet has a bandage and that a bandage needs to be checked twice a day. The CCS team would then schedule that pet twice a day. I would add it to the medications list to check morning and evening the integrity of the bandage. So then the list gets generated and each day is given out to the team, and the resort team then takes over, the pet care team specifically. So when you would be doing medications, you would stop by that pet's enclosure and actually take them out. And you want to feel, look, and smell the bandage. So I mean, pull that bandage towards your face. If it smells bad, if you notice any kind of foul odor, it smells like infection, if it smells like urine, if it just smells unpleasant, those are all things that we want to know. If it doesn't particularly have an odor, you want to look at it and make sure that it looks like it's intact. If it looks like it's been chewed on or disturbed in any way, that should be another alarming thing to you. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to feel it to see if it feels moist at all, because that could be the early sign that it's gotten wet, maybe just from water instead of from urine. So you're going to look at it, you're going to feel it, you're going to smell it. And if anything feels abnormal, if it's less than fresh, you should be compelled to go have a doctor check the integrity, especially if it's wet. And that can be done by just bringing the pet over to the hospital and finding whatever doctor is available and saying, I'm a little nervous. Would you just double check this for me? By doing that, we are just making sure that we cover ourselves as far as the liability of a bandage, because pets who are bandaged are obviously already injured in some kind of way, and bandages can just hold that moisture against the skin, especially if it's urine. You can deal with urine scalding, you can further the infection, you can start a new infection, you can prolong the healing process. Any of these things, we can really put a pet in harm's way and then also disappoint the owner with. And so we just want to make sure that we're very cautious. Not trying to scare anybody with this, just trying to say that it's our responsibility to make sure that if we tell an owner that we're going to be caring for their pet and we're going to be caring for the bandage, that we actually know how to do it. So just make sure that everybody knows how to make sure that a bandage is scheduled to be cared for, and then also to make sure that it's actually done. Now, we have to know that the resort environment is not the most ideal place for keeping a bandage dry. There's a lot of water that happens at the resort for cleaning, going outside. That faux grass sometimes can hold some moisture. So it's not the most conducive environment for keeping a bandage dry. However, there's a few tips that we can focus on to make sure that we do that. So one, obviously, avoid hosing water near a pet with a bandage. Use an empty IV bag. We have a few in the drawers at the resort. If not, we keep plenty at the hospital. You can use this and you can kind of slip it over the foot of a pet who's got a bandaged foot and allow them to walk outside, or if they have to be walked back inside into a run that's not completely dry, you can cover them. And you can also use this for a pet who you notice has urinated, or maybe if you're replacing their bandage. Another great thing to do is try and use grates whenever possible. Those big thick blue grates work great. The snap together gray ones that the resort has are great too. If you know that you've got a pet, especially a goofy little puppy who's got a bandaged foot and they're going to urinate, just be proactive and go ahead and put those grates down. That way they're at least not standing in it. All those things will help. And the other thing is for our whole team to be aware that a bandage needs to be checked every 3 days for the integrity of the bandage as well. That doesn't mean that it'll be removed or changed, however it likely will, but it's at least checked by a doctor every 3 days that the pet has it on. So that's something that we want to make sure that we're doing while they're in our care. And finally, we want to make sure that every pet who leaves our care with a bandage on has a recheck appointment to come in the time that would put them 3 days from when it was first applied. So those are all the kind of secrets to success with caring for these things. Really, really important that we all know and take those very seriously, and that we work as a team to make sure that it happens. So end of rant on bandages for today, but just be on the lookout for them and be ready next time that it occurs. Okay, that's all that I have for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for doing your training. And I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Take care.